Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Sharon Harrell with Royalty Business Group, and I'm here with my diva friends. We have Rosalind Fleming, Lisa Miles, and Lynette Sanders, who's going to join us. And we're going to have an open conversation about our finances, how the fears of what we go through affect about how we deal with money and our thought process with money. You know, we always have different fears about things and they affect different part of our lives. So we're going to have an open and authentic conversation about the things that we are dealing with and how they affect our thoughts on finances, how we spend money, how we save money, how we waste money. So I want to start off with Miss Rosalind and ask you, tell me, who taught you about finances?
Honestly, I didn't learn about finances. I think I had like a finance class when we were in, when I was in McKinley. They did have a class, the name of it right now escapes some kind of financial class. But honestly, I didn't learn about finances from anyone. I kind of doing my own thing with my finances, and it wasn't until I kind of had a crash and burn that I decided to actually learn about finances, which was your class. Learn about finances, which was
Okay. All right, great. So Lisa, tell us, how did you learn about finances?
I believed I learned about finances and the importance of finances when I was a little girl. My dad, he worked for a club, dance club, and he would bring home, he was the accountant for the club, and he would bring home, you know, the money that was, you know, rendered that evening. And he would have me count the money on the table, on the dining room table with him. And that's how I learned how to count money. But he explained to me the importance of money and always making sure that you keep a little for yourself, like always doing like 10%. So he told me, he said, okay, like let's say you have $100, baby. You want to make sure that you at least keep $10 from that $100 bill and save it for yourself. He always made having money seem like it was important. In my 6-year-old, 7-year-old brain, I thought he was rich because he always brought home all of this money. And I admired that. And I was like, I want to have a lot of money too. I'm still not at that level, but seeing all that money on that table let me know money was important. But seeing all that money on that table let me know money was important.
So where do you think that you got a disconnection from, like handling money or what you saw to what you're doing now?
Like handling money or what you saw. You want to take that, Roz, or you want me to go?
Well, when working, I think I think what happened with me is I went from one job making money to another job making not as much money, but then having a family, you know, having to support a family, a child, and then marriage. That's where I made the connection with my finances. Like I gotta pay rent, I gotta do that, I gotta pay car note. Well, it was just to me, it was just what I had to do. The disconnect came pretty much when it's different being in a two providers household than being by yourself. And so once I got by myself, then it seems like that's where the disconnect was, you know, because I had to learn how to live alone on just my paycheck. So you know, I think that had a lot to do with my disconnect, and I kind of never put the importance of, you know, my credit or savings. I never, none of that. Especially savings. You know, I remember when I was working at ISS, I actually had they let us set up another account. So I set up this account and I worked for ISS probably about 6 years. And so I had forgot that one day I set this account up. I went to the credit union one day, years later, and it was all this money in my account. And I was like, you know, I told my mom, they made a mistake on my account. I'm gonna have to get they gave me somebody else's money. This can't be my money. And I went to the teller and I was like, when you need my money to find out where the money came from. Where the money came from, the money account that I had set up, the savings account that I had actually set up at ISS years ago. And I was like, whoa. But instead of trying to build on it, you know, I was withdrawn. Like, ooh, I got free money, you know. So but back to your question, the disconnect came from just having, you know, being married, me and my husband, to then being by myself. And yeah, that was my thing. You muted. You muted.
And I was just talking about that because I said, I'm getting messages saying that there's some feedback. So if you're not speaking, can you put that, put yourself on mute? So I want to just kind of interject a little bit, because one of the things that was a disconnect for me was money and finances, right? Because you see money all the time. You hear people talk about money, but you never hear really people talk about finances, like investing and saving and planning for retirement or vacations or, those type of things. I want to know, like, did you all have the same type of issues where you didn't really connect with having, with money and then like financial planning?
All right, cool. I think I had a disconnect, for sure. I didn't really learn about true savings and investments until I started, I guess, investing in the thrift savings plan. So that gave me somewhat of a foundation of what investing looked like, but I didn't really make it a priority until I was well in my 40s. And I think listening to some coworkers who I admired, who I knew they talked investments around me a lot, and I started paying attention to what they were saying. And so I started kind of diversifying my thrift savings plan based on some of the things they were doing. And I remember having one of my supervisors, Wayne Frazier, he sat down with me and explained to me how thrift savings worked, how to look at the yield how to look at what the quarterly kind of report looked like for certain stock and that kind of thing. And then I met this wonderful, intelligent investor named Avia Cumberbatch, and she is my financial planner now. And she has held my hand and helped me to understand just how important investing is and what my financial future will look like, what retirement should look like, approximately how much money I should have when I retire. And she's also into real estate. So she kind of gave me a little bit of a crash course in how to go about maybe looking in that direction. So I hope to, at some point real soon, invest in some properties, but I still got to get my coins up. I'm not at that point yet to where I feel comfortable enough to actually put down that kind of money on some properties. So that's it for me. You're muted.
How about you, Roz?
You're muted.
How about you, Roz?
Well, excuse me. I'm still trying to, I'm just now, honestly, within the last couple of years, getting to the point where I wanted to learn about finances. I mean, not finances, but investment. I had opened a 401k at one of my jobs. And so you could go in and kind of pick where you wanted to invest. And I actually had good return on it. Excuse me. But I never really got to learn about how to invest, what you should invest in, and where to kind of invest. You understand what I'm saying? Like I'm in counseling now, a financial course now. And the thing is, she's telling me about yield accounts. I think that's what it is, like yield accounts where high yield accounts and everything. So she explained that to me, and you know, my challenge is to invest in a high yield account that I can make, you know, some money off of it, but put my money somewhere safe as well. So, and it's kind of interesting because, you know, it's a lot of stuff you just never knew. And especially at our age, you know, well, you know, at my age, I'm like, you know, it's kind of time to not really spend money on just anything now. Like I kind of watch where I'm putting my money at. You know, y'all know I love candles, and Bath and Body Works just had a sale on candles, and so it looked good, you know, to get those 3-wick candles for, you know, a certain price. But at the end of the day, I'm not just going, they know you're not going because of the sale. You're just not going to get 2 candles or 3 candles. You want to try to get an abundance because it's a sale. And when I looked in my cart, I had like $100 worth of candles in my cart. And I was like, you know, I had to sit right here in this corner and talk to myself like, girl, you know, you don't need those candles. And I'd be like, but you know, I want them. You don't need those candles, but I want them, you know. So it's becoming more important to me how I'm spending my money and what I'm spending my money on, and actually ways that I can make money, you know. Just with something slight as I know a lot of people are turning to um, like Instagram and probably Facebook, but I mostly see it on Instagram now, where there's, people like thrift shopping. Well, you can go in my closet and you can actually go thrift shopping on a lot of levels, you know what I'm saying? Shirts, everything. So I'm trying to see how I can get something like that started, but it's so time consuming for me, to go through all that stuff, tag all that stuff, hang it up, and you know, just it's like another chore. So when I said when I free my time up, I'm going that that's something I'm gonna do because um it's money to be made and there's a lot of side hustles you can have, and I feel like you should do what 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 you enjoy, you know. And if you can do something you enjoy, like why buy candles when I can make them? You know, I can make them. And my granddaughter helped me see that. She's like, Nana, you like candles? We can make candles because somebody bought her a candle set for Christmas. And so she's like, let's make these candles. And I'm like, you know what, Maya, we can make our own candles. So I'm always, I'm thinking right now, especially now. That's my little 2 cents.
Roz, look, we can definitely come over and help you tag your stuff now, girl. I know you got a bunch of clothes and things. We can have a yard sale, huh?
Hey, let's have a diva yard sale. I'm down with it.
Yeah, shoot. I know you got a bunch of clothes.
They all in the stores too. I have not touched since we moved in here. I have not touched that stuff. It's been downstairs. And I'm talking about everything from like glasses, all kinds of stuff. It's just downstairs.
You know what? You had started off talking about as far as like, I think you mentioned something as far as not really being maybe taught or something about investing, and how it just made me start thinking. And it's great, Sharon, that you're having these kind of forums about, finances and money, just to really like make us think, because in the Black community, we're just not really taught the basic foundations of money and the importance of it, how to go about investing. You know, our counterparts know it real early. And that's because, they come out just ready. They know more about investing. And I think maybe because as in our community, we have struggled so much that once we get our money together, it's like, oh, we've arrived, and we start going out and being real irresponsible with our money and going out and buying that fancy car, the rims are spinning, they spinning, you want to get them top-notch rims and a beautiful home. And where I know a lot of people, they'll get the nice home and have no furniture, but still maxing out their thrift savings, So it's good that you're doing this, because we really need to learn how to invest and the importance of money so that we can teach our children and have that legacy wealth to where it's something that's passed on from one generation to the next. Because if we don't learn it and implement it, I mean, who gonna train up the next generation? It's just gonna be a cyclical thing, and our kids won't have money, their kids won't have money. And I'm not for that. I'm not for that. I want to have and build legacy wealth for my family. I want my grandkids and my great grandkids to say, my grandmama Lisa, or my great grandmama Lisa taught us how to save money and how to invest. So we have to really like learn. So I thank you for, giving us this platform and having the tools to help teach us.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that because, I remember when my mom I probably was about, I'm gonna say between, we was in River Terrace, put it that way. And uh, my mom used to cry because I guess at some point, um, where she was in life, you know, she had started making money and spending it. And she was getting a lot of credit. And my mother, one thing I do know is my mother has always had, like, once she finally crashed during that time, from that point on, my mother has had like stellar credit. You know what I mean? And so, as far as being taught, I wasn't necessarily taught how to save money and things like that. I knew it was important. So, you know, let me put that in there. I did know money was important, but you know, like Lisa, you mentioned your dad, you just looked at your dad through a child's scope and was like, oh, he's rich. I kind of thought the same thing about my mom when we used to ride up downtown to the Riggs Bank. And you know, the Riggs Bank downtown had them big gold doors that looked like a safe, you know. Um, so I thought we were in a good place. You know what I mean? I wasn't sure, but you know, I just thought we was in a good place. And but like I said, I didn't even, honestly speaking and being kind of transparent, I didn't even know how to write a check until I was grown. You know what I'm saying? Like I never wrote a check, and when I wrote a check, I didn't know how to fill it out. You know, it's things like that that I've tried to make sure my kids. I am sorry that I wasn't more responsible. You know, because I feel like it was something important to pass on to my kids. So now in their adult age, you know, at anywhere between 25 and 30 or 25 and 35, you know, they're getting it. But I feel like it's very important, and yes, Sharon, accolades on what you're doing, because I feel like it is important at a primary level for us as Black people to learn about money, investing, saving, retirement, everything early, you know, because I feel like I mean, white people do it, Chinese, Asian people do it, you know, to their kids, you know, just like education, you know. So I feel like it is very, very, very important for you to continue with this, in the sense that if you can go from school to school in a primary, at a primary level, you know, start at primary age children, teaching them the importance of being able to count their money, and you know, not get your money back at the register and just put it in your pocket, but count your money, make sure that you're receiving the right change back. Like even slight things like that, you know what I mean? Is important, because I don't think that they're being taught that anymore at all, you know, and especially in schools. I mean, I've not heard of it, you know. Um, so I think it's important, and thank you for this.
Oh, no, thank you. And we're getting some great comments in the chat. And I want to ask that our attendees, if you could continue to, put your comments in the chat so we can know your thoughts. Let us know what you are really feeling. Like, let us know your experiences and what's been going on with you from childhood up to now. I just want to kind of be kind of transparent, like when I was growing up, my family, we didn't talk about, like, my parents didn't tell us what they made, and we just came home and we had the food, our lights were on. It didn't seem like we were struggling. Matter of fact, I could just ask for money whenever I wanted to, not trying to brag. But the thing is, I didn't come to a slight reality check about the finances in my household until I got married. And, for those of you that know me from way back, I got married the day before I graduated from high school. So my high school graduation, all my friends going out to spend and celebrate their graduation. And I'm like, hey, where's my celebration for graduation? My mother was like, what? We just paid for a wedding. What what you talking about? So I was kind of stunned and a little devastated because I wanted to celebrate just like everybody else, but I couldn't because we didn't have that finance things, and it was never explained to me. So as I grew up, I just knew money was here and there, and I just ignored things going on. My father was an expert on money, but he didn't share that. Like he did it, and I noticed it as I was growing up, because he would always have money. Like my sister and brothers, we used to say he rich, because he had money in the bank. He could call the bank and say, send me a check for $5,000 or whatever it is that he wanted. But back in the day, you could do stuff like that. You can't do that now. But I'm just saying, he grew up in the time of the Depression. So his mindset was a lot different than my mom's, even though they both grew up during the Depression. My mother's mindset to me was, we got money, we just spend it. She made sure the bills were paid, but in the long term, she just spend it. Where my dad, he was a saver, and he had enough money to pay for like my mother's funeral without even having to worry about anything. He had a check right there at the funeral home to pay for the whole thing. When he died, there was enough money in his bank account to cover his whole funeral arrangement. But let me hear from you. Like when you were growing up, did you have those conversations? I know, Lisa, you said that your dad, brought home money and had you count it out, but did you really have conversations about money, where it came from, how it was spent in your household? And thank you, Lynette, for joining us. I would just want to remind everybody that I'm Sharon. I'm from the Royalty Financial Business Group, and we're talking about our fears and how they affect the way that we have seen and used money. So I'm going to direct this question to Lynette. What type of financial conversations did you have in your household?
We did not have any conversations, none. My mother was self-employed, so she had money coming in daily, and she shopped daily. So I had no concept of bills, and we, lived with my grandparents. I would see them at the dining room table doing the bills, paying the bills, writing checks, but no one ever said, come sit here so we can show you what we're doing. No one ever did that. So I grew up with, as fast as I'm getting paid, I'm spending it. And then it got to a point where, speaking of fear, I was afraid of not having enough money to do what I wanted to do. So bills got pushed left and right. I'm turning robbing Peter to pay Paul because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then later on in life, when I realized if I just pay all my bills on time, I have a lot of money left over to then do what I want to do. But because I was never taught money and money management, I had no idea. I just was like, okay, I have this check and I'm supposed to divvy it out somehow to pay everything, daycare, buy groceries, transportation, the rent, but it never seemed like it was enough. When in actuality, it was plenty. I just didn't know how to manage it properly.
Right.
And I was never taught.
So great. I'm glad you brought that up about, like the fear that you had, that you didn't have enough. What did that make you feel like every time you got paid? Like what feelings came up within you?
how am I,
You're on mute.
how am I going to do this? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to divvy up everything so that everything gets paid and I still have money in my pocket? Because that was the fear, that I'm not going to have any money in my pocket for something that may come up. And that was one of my big fears. I just remember that, being in my 20s and 30s and trying to maneuver around with my money, and it just never worked. It never worked. And it took me a long time. Sorry. It took me a long time to really get a full definition of my money and how to manage it, how to pay my bills, and still be able to do what I want to do, or, just throw some money in savings, because that was another thing that was never discussed. Now, I knew that my grandparents had savings, but no one ever said, listen, try to save at least this amount, out your check for savings. It just wasn't discussed. And
you
even having older siblings who were actually, they've done pretty well. No one ever sat down, because they were so much older than me. No one ever sat down and said, listen, when I got my first job, this is how you do it. This is how you divvy out your money and pay your bills. And then, whatever's left, then you put this much in savings, and, however you want to do it. But it was just never discussed at all.
Right, and you brought up a great thing, because I was going to ask you, how long did this last for you? And you said from your 20s, your 30s. I know for me, my mindset really didn't change until my late 40s, when I was just like, okay, I really need to start doing better, living paycheck from paycheck. Like you said, you think you don't have enough money, but you really just not managing the money properly. And that is a change of mindset. We have to remember that God gives us everything that we need.
Mhm.
And all we have to do is use those resources wisely. So we had the money, but it's just like we're not spending it properly. We're not managing it properly. And I remember writing out a budget, like writing down all my expenses, writing down all my income. And then when whatever I had left, I was like, oh, I got some extra money. I'm going to spend it up, and instead of saying my money needs to go to something. So if it's entertainment, then I have to say it's entertainment. If it's going to go into a savings, I have to say savings, until at the end is zero. It doesn't mean that I don't have money. It's just that I place my money in different places. So I want to thank Nikki, Shalita, Tashima, Wendy, Norma, Lisa, everybody that has put in the chat, and those of you online, I thank you so much for joining us. We are still talking about our finances and fears. So Lisa, Miles, I want to go to you and hear about some things that you might have been, fears that you might have been facing as you were not just growing up, but maybe into adulthood.
Definitely. I would get palpitations, heart palpitations. I was scared. I did, like I was saying earlier, I invested in that thrift savings early in my government career. And because of that, I was able to I borrowed some of that money from that thrift savings plan and purchased a home. Oops, why do that, right? Because now I'm out here, I'm 28 years old, I'm trying to manage the new mortgage payment, car, all of the bills, being on my own for real. And it was hard. It looked good probably from the outside, but Lisa girl was drowning. I was drowning, and I was scared to go and tell my mom, because just like you, Roz, my mom got stellar credit. She's good with her money. And I was out there just kind of, trying to make it look a certain kind of way. but it really wasn't. So I wanted to have certain clothes. I wanted to look the part, but I really wasn't all that. I wasn't, period. But my mortgage was late almost every month. And then I had the audacity to, try to pay tithes. So it was just rough. But I had it rough. So that when you said a fear, that's what first came into my mind, was that my heart would race. I would get palpitations because I was afraid I'm going to lose my home. I'm going to foreclose on this thing. I jumped out here too fast. I'm going to disappoint my mom. So that was that initial fear that I can recall.
How about you, Roz?
Okay,
How
I don't
about you?
know where to start with that. I think when you talk about fear and money, I'm gonna go to my adulthood. So, Butter, you mentioned tithes, paying tithes. Well, and Sharon, you also mentioned having your money go somewhere. So, wow. Like I said, my fear didn't set in until I was by myself. And then when I was by myself, I actually, I feel like I spiraled out of control because, like Nettie calls it, retail therapy. Well, I had therapy often. You know what I mean? I would shop, and y'all know me. I would shop, and I'm gonna tell you when it really hit me was when I moved here, and because of the situation because of the last few years, I had been so busy, sort of, living out a bag, so to speak, that I felt like I would, as soon as I lost something, I was going to replace that thing. And so within that time of me replacing it, well, I replaced it 3 times over. So when I got here, I had 3 coats, like 3 army coats, 10 black sweaters, 5 like black little dresses, 10 go-to outfits and shit. Like it made me cry. You understand what I'm saying? Like I literally cried in the middle of my floor, like, oh my God, Roz, like, what's wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? You understand what I'm saying? I never thought to put my money somewhere. Like I remember at work, my team had we said we was going to save money, and one of the young ladies introduced those envelopes. You get a box of envelopes, and I think you do $5 bills, $10 bills, or no, you do a certain amount, like 50 in one envelope and on. So we even tried that, putting your money somewhere. But when I noticed when I would run out of money, I would always hit that savings, you know what I mean? And it was just a fear for me to, like you said, but and not look the part, no matter what I would be going through, I could be going through a financial ruin, but I don't want to look like I'm going through financial ruin. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to look poor. And then when I got to the mindset that, okay, Roz, in order to do this, you're going to have to do that. Well, even in my looking poor, so to speak, or not buying for a while, well, it's the discipline of that thing. You know, it's not just, it has to become a lifestyle. It can't be momentary, because if it's momentary, then you go back to the same habits. You know, you go back to the same old behaviors because you haven't, or, you know, I hadn't got it in my mind that, okay, you can't just build a cushion and 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 only to pull it, or, you know, just to pull the rug from under your own self. You know, I build the cushion, but then once that I have that cushion and everything is going on a even playing field, then I feel like, oh, but I got play money over here, you know, and I take that money, and like I done told you, Lisa, you done came over here, and I'm like, I got too much stuff in here. You know, I need to get rid of this. I need to get rid of that. I made a bad choice about this. And Nettie, you've been with me like when I bought that phone. I should not have bought this phone, but because, and the thing about it, it was a bad choice as far as I needed a phone. I was tired of the iPhone. It was so many issues with my phone. I swear to goodness, I promise y'all, I bought that flip phone, that fold phone, and then 2 weeks later, T-Mobile talking about you get iPhones on us. So if I would have just waited, you didn't even just get an iPhone, you get the earphones too. But I done just spent $1,000, almost $1,800 on a phone. You understand what I'm saying? I swear I want to smack myself every time I think about it. Every time I touch that phone, I want to think about it. It's just about making choices, you know, but you'd be surprised. Fear comes in, you know, different ways. And for me, I just don't want to, I don't want to go without. It's like the little girl that can never have enough. You know,
Yeah, you brought up something great, Roz, about not wanting to be seen in the, like you going through the struggle, right? So what I kind of coined is, you know how people say you fake it till you make it? Really, you faking it and not making it. You are going through the motions so the world can see, but really you are struggling inside. You are dying inside just so you can have the persona of I'm doing okay or I'm doing above okay, trying to compare ourselves to other people when we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to nobody but Jesus Christ, right? So we have about 13 more minutes left, and I just want to hear, like, now that we know what to do, what things are you actually doing? So anybody can jump in. I was gonna call on somebody, but anybody could jump in and say.
I am what I do now is, since I get paid bi-weekly, I pay everything bi-weekly. That way I'm not struggling trying to make sure on the 1st or the 5th or the 18th, whenever stuff is due, that I'm trying to get a big lump sum of money together. So I pay everything bi-weekly. That way I know how much money I have, how much I have left over. And that works for me. It helps with the anxiety, the money anxiety, but and it also helps me to save. So I know I can put this amount away, and it can sit there.
I find that I do still use my credit card. So when I use my credit card, I make sure that when I get that monthly statement, I just pay it all off. So that helps me to know that during that month, and I want to use a certain credit card, you only gonna spend, Lisa, like 150 or 200, because you're going to pay that whole thing off at the end of the month. So don't get crazy. Don't max it out, because that's where I have always dropped the ball, is in credit card debt. I give me a fresh credit card, and I used to always just like, it would probably be a month, if that sometimes. And I have taken it all the way up to the max. So Lynette, you just gave me a nice little nugget of information. I need to possibly do more of a bi-weekly thing, to where, maybe, because when I pay it off at the end of the month, sometimes I still am like, dang, that hurt. So maybe I do need to split it up, but it does help by knowing, my expenditures should not exceed a certain amount during that month, because I know I got to pay that bad boy off at the end of the month in full. So it helps
And once it's
keep my
gone, it's
spending under
gone.
control.
Exactly. And once it's gone, it's gone. So
Right. You don't have to worry.
I can't go into the account and be like, you know what? I get paid in 2 weeks. So I can just borrow this out of the money. I just send it away. That way I don't have to deal with it. It's done.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
I think that's something that, we kind of used to do, is like, oh, I get paid in 2 weeks. I get paid in, at the end of the month. I'm just going to take this and use this right now. But what about those things that you still got to pay that you were going to pay before,
Exactly.
And I think it's the same way, like when you get paid bi-weekly, there are those months where you get 3 checks and you're like, oh, I got an extra check. Do you really have an extra check? No, you can just take that same amount of money and, like you said, take it, pay on whatever bi-weekly. Yeah. I feel like you, Lynette, people say create a monthly budget. For me, I had to take my monthly expenses and break them down to my bi-weekly check.
Yeah.
And that helped me. But I feel people need to create the budget based on their finances and what's best for them, whether you're single or you're married. You do need to have a budget, but you don't have to call it a budget. It's, for me, a budget was something like I couldn't wrap my head around. But for me to write down how much I get paid, and then how much my expenses were, and then figure, say, okay, with this check, I need to pay this, 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 and this. And then the next check, I'll pay, the other things. I don't have to call it a budget, but I know that's what it is. But I call it, that's the way I live my finances. And so, Roz, I wanted to hear from you. What is it that you're doing differently now, now that you know better? Oh, you got it, Lynette?
So I think, Lord, y'all, I think the biggest thing that I'm doing now is I tithe, because like you said, God gives us everything. We have everything we need. And so I try to just understand where I am financially. Like, when y'all take off on that plane on Cabo, I'm gonna be with y'all in the spirit, and that's the way I tried to do it. I kept saying, "Yep, I'm gonna do this. I'm going to Cabo. Like, I don't care what I gotta do. I'm gonna get to Cabo. But then I come back and I ain't got no place to live. I can't buy no groceries. Like, I had to make a choice, like I realized that, like I said, with the phone, just making poor financial choices, going on want versus my needs. And so I kind of try to, with everything that I do, I'm like, do I really need this? Do I really have to go shopping? Like, whatever it is, I just try to make better financial choices, and I'm taking advantage of certain programs that the District of Columbia offers. So yes, I'm in counseling right now. I have a financial counselor that I talk to every 2 weeks, and she kind of on it, like, what did you save some money? If you ain't saved no money, why didn't you save any money? Like, where you putting your money at? Did you stop smoking cigarettes? Because you know, if you buy cigarettes, then whatever you spending in cigarettes, that's just a waste of money, because that money, no matter if it's $30, $40, and the way that cigarettes done gone up, you spending more than $100, you know. So she stays on my back like that, you know what I mean? And so between tithing and just trying to make better financial choices, you know, do I really need to finance this? You know, because I was going to do finance Cabo, but then at the end of the day, you know, I'm paying in finance charges. I'm paying maybe $1,500 to $2,000 more than the whole trip at the end of the day, trying to, you know, trying to enjoy myself with my girls. Well, I'm gonna have to do that on the East Coast, right here with y'all, until I know that I can do something different. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what it was for me. I'm just tithing and trying to make better choices with my money, regardless of how bad I want to do something or how bad I want to purchase something. That's pretty much it for me. Did we lose her, Nat? Is it just me and you? What happened?
Uh-oh, I don't know. Something happened.
Something did happen. You look cute.
Thank you. I don't know where Sharon went.
Look, my little PIV card that's in my computer, in my laptop,
We're
I
still
think it,
live.
huh?
We're still
Oh, we're
live.
still live. Hey y'all, I hope you enjoying it, getting something from it.
I think it was interesting. I
It is
mean,
very interesting. We are girlfriends, and I have really learned something from y'all today. You know, we've known each other forever, but I just, when we were talking about how we were raised and stuff, I didn't know those things.
Mhm.
Y'all didn't know about how I was struggling in that house.
But you know what, Lisa,
Struggling
I get it because you
bad.
know I bought
But
my house right after you bought yours, and I bought it in July, and in October I got laid off from my job. So I was sitting there with this house
yep,
that I've only had for
but
what,
ain't
5 months with no job.
right.
And
And that's where it's like that's what we gotta have that
right,
reserve.
and I had no reserve.
But what did we know? We didn't know.
Right, we were
We didn't know. We were
28,
young, girl.
29. We didn't know anything, and we didn't have
28,
anybody
29
around
years old.
to tell us, like, okay, do this.
Yep.
We didn't have the resources like we have now. Like you can go on Google and find out anything you want. Back then, I didn't know. You know, thankfully I was able to hold on to it for 4 years without having a job, temping. I was doing everything.
Mm.
I was on unemployment for a minute, then I was temping. I was doing whatever. And I
Girl,
did
you
that
made that thing work.
I did it for 4 years.
That's a
4.
hustle. I would have gave up. I just would have gave up.
I gave up at the end because I was just like, I was about to have a heart attack. I felt like I was about to have a stroke or something. I did give up at the end, but it had just gotten to be too much where it was like, I don't have enough money. Like, I seriously didn't have enough money to do everything I needed to do because I was so far behind in everything. But, you know, it teaches you lessons. I know when I go to buy my next house, what to look for and, you know, what I need for it. I won't make mistakes.
I'm sorry, ladies, my computer froze for a minute, but I'm glad you all kept going.
Yeah,
And look, I'm sitting out here on the porch and it's getting dark, so I need one
Yes, we
of
about
those
to wrap
little.
it up, but I do want to just direct our attendees to the chat to see that I am offering a coaching program that's starting on June the 9th, and it's going to be a group workshop for 4 weeks. So just fill out the Google form. The link is in the chat, and let me know your interest. And we are going to try to get together maybe one more time before June 9th to kind of continue this conversation, but we definitely want your feedback, your input. Share this information with other people so they can join us again in the future. Thank you, goddaughter, for joining us. And I thank you, ladies. I love you so much, and thank you for your transparency this evening. I appreciate you, and we will talk again soon. God bless, and thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, good night.
Good night.
good night.